Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wowhead Weekly number 287. We heard some sounds there from Brightpaw, I think, moving around with with Perk. For today's show, we have the latest news of the Mage Tower finally being live if you're in the US, and very soon being live in EU as well. So we will do a quick summary of what that means, what rewards you can expect, and so on. We also have the 9.2 PTR available, which means that there has been some new discoveries or some more new visuals that we haven't seen before that we'll share with you guys. And we will, of course, also go through other news, especially outside of the game, to cover what the updates are that is going on right now. Before we jump into anything, let me quickly introduce myself. I'm Annie, or also known as Annie Fuchsia, and I'm a full time streamer playing games. My co host is the lovely, very talented Wowhead site director, Perculia.
Thanks for that lovely intro. I do all the behind the scenes stuff at Wowhead, overseeing the news and guides and features. And today's a very exciting day for the site because we released a bunch of Legion time walking guides for all specs, as well as how to gear up. So we will be discussing that, as well as some of the hands-on PTR discoveries, as well as data mining, and then of course the Blizzard news. And as you heard at the start of the show, there is a cat that is right here, and currently he's swishing his tail against the microphone, so I'm sure he will join us in a few minutes officially on the show. So, yeah, why don't we discuss the live news first? The big news,
Sounds
which
good.
is Legion time walking.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a good idea. Something that I'm excited about myself. Since I'm EU, it's not out yet for
Hmm.
me, but for you lucky people in NA, you guys may have already tried it out, and it seems to be quite a challenge from what I'm hearing for people who
Yeah,
have tried it.
so on the PTR for most specs, it was pretty easy, but then Blizzard did some last minute time walking tuning
Mm-hmm.
last night, and also increased the health pool of of the challenges for some specs. And sorry, I don't know. There is sound playing. Um,
No
and
worries.
yeah, Blizzard has made it harder, and we were just saying before the show that overall is probably a good thing because the original Legion Mage Tower was not easily beatable when it first came out. But if it is challenging, it makes sense to have it be up more than, twice a year.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's a huge plus for it to be more difficult. I think that makes it more fun. But yeah, that does put more emphasis on the fact that it's not always available. And that will be upsetting if you've been, progressing every day and then it's, the last day that it's available for the next few months. That's, quite devastating. But
Mm.
I have a feeling that they will change it. And I think the news might come after everyone has tried it because it would feel like good PR on their side.
Mm.
Okay, seems like you guys all enjoyed it, so we're gonna bring it back in 2 weeks. I don't know. Maybe I'm just hoping, but I can see something like that happening though because waiting is it really 6 months?
Yeah, it's slightly earlier than
Yeah,
that. Let me check the
it's basically a
uh
ridiculously long
yeah.
time, which is not
Yeah,
fun if
I
you're
mean,
sitting there progressing every day. To then feel like you have to wait so long to be able to do it again.
yeah. Plus it's just like there's so many events and they keep adding more time walking events, and that
Mm-hmm.
just makes the cycle longer, even though they
Mm-hmm.
tried to slightly condense it. There's just so many that you can't do it
Yeah.
faster.
Like, so for example, there is time walking going on more often than that, but because they are in a cycle, Legion time walking is specifically the Legion time walking. Legion time walking is the Legion time walking, yeah. And sometimes there will be a time walking up, which is a different expansion, and that means that the Mage Tower won't be available at that point. So that's why. That's why it
Yeah.
might take longer than what it seems.
I think it would make sense if they always had a time walking up in addition to the other events, because many of the other events aren't as hype. and
Yeah.
have more specialized focus, but people are always most excited about time walking. And hopefully, with this tech to take the Legion content and then scale it for use in Shadowlands, they can, I don't know, go back and
Mm-hmm.
make some other old content relevant and have that up during time walking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
It sort
think
of
it's a
parallels
really good idea. Mm-hmm.
it sort of parallels what we were saying a few weeks ago about how they have these interesting story quests, but then they remove the story quest from the game and you're not sure. It gets like a lot of work went into them with the voice acting and the cinematics, and then it gets removed. So it's a similar thing here. Like the Legion Mage Tower is really intricate and cool. Why is it only up a few times, a year?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Definitely.
So,
I
but
th-
yeah, if you need a recap, if you're
mm-hmm.
EU, Legion Time Walking is here for 2 weeks. You can defeat the Mage Tower again on your spec, and instead of getting an artifact weapon, you get a recolored tier 20 armor set. And the Guardian Druids are very special because they get a Fell Werebear skin, which was another variation of the artifact challenge one. And unsurprisingly, that guide is the most popular on Wowhead, so Blizzard take note. People are still really interested in,
Mm-hmm.
artifact forms and weapons the most.
Yep. It's a really cool
So,
form. It's still a very unique shape, the Guardian
mm,
form itself, and I really like this recolor as well. The colors that were back in Legion were cool, but they were single colored, right? No. I don't think they had any patterns on them, so I think this looks really cool.
yeah. And then in addition, something new is that there is Mythic Plus time walking. It's not just the old dungeons. There is a special affix, the Infernal one, that is, Legion flavored. And you will encounter that as well, which is also interesting. And that would be fun if they could do Mythic Plus for older dungeons or add like flavored abilities if they wanted to make the old dungeons more challenging during time walking.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Indeed.
and then of course, there's a lot of things you can buy. What is my cat doing? He's tilting my monitor.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there are a lot of things you can buy with Time Warp badges that are new, including there's the Valshara Hippogriff mount that is a purple hippogriff. Um, there are some interesting cosmetic items from Legion bosses like the Ravencrest battle plate and the Aegis of Agrimar. And then there's a bunch of Nightborn weapons, so really cool if you are playing a Nightborn,
Mm-hmm.
and just the usual badge gear. And of course, you get more reputation with the Legion factions during during this holiday.
Yeah.
So if you need to grind stuff for like Paragon caches, or you weren't playing during Legion and you want to collect stuff, there's a lot of interesting things from Legion
Mm-hmm.
rep vendors.
And also, if you want to take the extra step and go through a bigger challenge, you can go for completing all the 7 different instances that are available at the Mage Tower.
Hmm.
This is spread across different specs. I believe there's one healer one, one tank one, and then different types of DPS fights. So
Yep.
with one DPS class, you may be able to do multiple different instances. You may cover 3 instances, for example, by playing a warlock. Each spec has a different fight, and if you finish all 7 unique instances, you get the tome mount, which is it was one of the mounts that were part of the voting that we had a couple years ago, I think it was, where the tree won the public vote, right? And
Only wow, that was only
when
a
was
year
it?
ago. It feels
Was it
like
only a
it's
year ago?
been
Okay.
several years though.
A
Yeah.
couple of years ago.
Yeah.
It feels like it's been a long time. But at that point, they did sort of tease the idea of having a book as a mount, and it's actually here in the game now as a reward if you manage to complete all 7 of the different instances. And you can pick and choose what DPS classes you'd prefer for the different fights, since there's multiple DPS specs that can do the same instance. And the mount looks like this.
Yeah, and obviously you don't need to do this challenge on all 36 specs, and some specs are easier than others,
Yeah.
especially with the health tuning. Like I've been hearing that some of the Warlock challenges have very high HP now. They're like significantly harder than on the PTR. Um, but yeah, this is up for 2 weeks straight. It's not like the original Mage Tower where it's
Mm-hmm.
only up for a few days. You had to like spend money to queue up for it. You can try this repeatedly. Um, and yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I think it's a great addition. It's also interesting how these rewards are pretty simple recolors of an old set, and people really like them, and
Yeah.
because it's
Mm,
like this to
mm-hmm.
this to people is class fantasy, and as we were discussing last
Yeah.
week, the progenitor tier, uh, maybe it had like class silhouettes and elements, but the colors plus the Titan elements made it a little too like hard to relate to. So
Mm-hmm.
like sometimes what's simple is best, like
Yep.
these Mage Tower recolors.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
So, and yeah, some of them, I mean, like there are even the colors chosen, like they all don't follow some color scheme, like they're all
No,
different.
they're pretty unique to each other. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of the tints relate to specs, like the priest has it looks very shadowy,
Mm-hmm.
or the mage looks arcane, the death knight has the green for unholy. So, I think people colors do tie into class fantasy. Class fantasy isn't just about the
Absolutely.
details on an armor set.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Indeed.
yeah,
And in
so yeah,
contrast
we
to,
have
like you said, this set that's coming up, it's quite nice to have these more class oriented specs rather than raid oriented.
yeah. So, we do have, as mentioned, we have guides to all 36 specs, and we will be updating them in case the tuning drastically changes the
Mm-hmm.
strategy. We also have a really detailed guide to the best gear from Mage Tower if you're going for a time walking approach. While you can
Mm.
complete it in Shadowlands gear, a lot of older gear comes with sockets, which give you more stats. A lot of older enchants have better effects, older trinkets, and we have a really detailed guide to that in case you want to
Go
farm
for
some
the
extra
best in
things. It's
slot.
not
Mm-hmm.
mandatory, but if
Mm-hmm.
this is like if you're really struggling and you want to, you know, find some, maybe you have something in void storage that has like extra sockets in it, you might want to see about that.
Yeah. If you want
So,
to go for a the biggest advantage possible,
yeah.
or min maxing, then there's options out there. But you don't have to. Your gear itself will be fine. It will scale down. But yeah, some people do like going in with the best options possible.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um yeah. So that's what's up with Legion time walking. And
Mm-hmm.
um next up I think we can talk about the PTR um
Should we
with a new
mention the
armor
Mythic
model.
Plus as well?
Oh yeah, we can do that, sure. Do that briefly. But
Yeah,
yeah,
because I
what
think
you
there's people
can
who are
tell Mythic
interested
Plus.
in.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Um,
Good. No, you can go ahead. I don't want to speak over you. Yeah.
yeah, I was thinking the same with about you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that we are for the first time ever having Mythic Plus as part of Time Walking, and Legion became the first example or first expansion for us to see this in action. And I'm really curious to see how people will enjoy this and how the tuning will feel. There's going to be somewhat of a little bit of nostalgia for people who did a lot of Mythic Plus at the time. For people who didn't, it means that there will be some variation in dungeons and Mythic Plus that you can do currently, and I think that's a huge plus. I hope to see more of this kind of stuff in the future because again we're looking at old content being possible to use for current content, and I think that's always a great thing.
in they made a special infernal seasonal affix where it,
Mm-hmm.
summons a legion, a lieutenant, and infernals and demons, and it seems
Mm-hmm.
that it has some nice flavor. And again, I think that if they're going to put effort into developing a new affix, then it should be around more frequently. It shouldn't just be a thing that's up a few times a year.
Mm-hmm.
um but I think it would be fun to see this sort of thing, apply to past time walking events. Maybe,
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
you can always do the old dungeons, but it would be cool if there was like a more difficult mode, and maybe on the more difficult mode there would be some sort of ability or aura that's themed after the expansion. That
Mm-hmm.
could be a way to make other uh, dungeons seem more relevant, because some of these time walking dungeons have been around for years at this point, and they feel kind of stale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And also, there was another discussion on the whole Mythic Plus model at the
Mhm.
moment. So, dungeons have, traditionally always been introduced as a way to gear up before raiding.
Mhm.
And Mythic Plus kind of changed that because they've
Mhm.
made it so that dungeons are relevant even afterwards because it's its own type of mode. But this often means that we get a lot of dungeons at the beginning of an expansion, and then very rarely do we get dungeons added later on. Maybe in this case we got
Right.
Tazavesh, and then we it was split into two, so that's technically maybe two new Mythic pluses. But in general, people who enjoy dungeons or who enjoy Mythic Plus end up repeating the same thing across the different patches. And while we do have the seasonal affix now, which I think was a great help to bring some variation, it probably does feel very stale. So having these time walking periods come in with some old dungeons for some extra flavor, extra variety, I think that's a good way to make it feel
Yeah.
less repetitive and boring.
Like, a lot of the dungeons have like interesting story elements. They all have very
Mm-hmm.
different environments and
Mm-hmm.
backgrounds. There's a lot of variety. Like, they're very well done, and I think
Oh,
that
absolutely.
for casuals as well as hardcore, like, it's just like so much obsolete content. How can we, if we're bringing back the Mage Tower, how can we bring back like over a decade of dungeons that are purposely trying to be all different from each other? And yeah, I think it would be interesting if they could find a way to make old dungeons more relevant and have that be an alternative
Mm-hmm.
to just running the same Shadowlands ones over and over for months.
Yeah,
Um,
agreed. Yeah, I think
so
that was
yeah,
the
Legion
last thing
time
that I want to
walking.
talk about time walking. Yeah.
Yeah, here for the next 2 weeks, and
Yep.
yeah, hopefully it goes really
Good
well.
luck. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd love to see more things in this vein. Blizzard could have easily just picked a few dungeons, had a few new items to buy, and called it a day. So I'm glad they're
Yep.
trying something new with the affix and the much bigger variety of things you can buy, and the mage tower, and the armor
Yeah,
recolors. I think overall it's
definitely.
better.
I think this is the biggest time walking update that we've had ever, since it was originally introduced. So I think this is awesome. Multiple content. Mage Tower is new. Mythic Plus is new with its own affix, new rewards as well. I think it's good.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, now we can talk about the 9.2
PTR.
PTR. We have an interesting mix of data mining as well as some exploration stuff, because the realms were finally up since we did our last show, and apparently they are down right now. So who knows? Maybe there'll be stuff in the middle of the show that will be new.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
yeah, so we have a new armored jailer model. Not too much of a surprise if you saw the, Sanctum of Domination cinematic. But now this is him in the actual game, and
Mm-hmm.
he's bigger than his past model. He's got a really cool mace. He's got his sort of Lich King just armor on, the big hole in his chest that's now full.
Yep. Yep.
Um, and he has some animations which are fun to see in the model viewer. You can make him like jump around and dance and do all this stuff. Um,
And you
but
can
yeah,
see him in
he looks,
comparison to his old model here.
yeah.
It's funny how much bigger he looks, but if you take a closer look, you see that it's still the same body. It's just that the armor is
Yeah.
so much bigger.
Yeah, like his feet have these spiky toes on it,
Yeah,
which are
big
really over
big
the top.
boots, big shoulders, big headpiece. Okay, then
Yeah.
he's got the hole in the chest.
Yeah, I mean, I do think, I mean, we'll probably talk about this when we get to the spoilers, but I do think that it's a pretty cool model. They're clearly trying to show that he's, a very serious evil character, and I understand how they didn't want to reveal his model right away at the start of the expansion, showing that he was weaker, but I do think his story needed a bigger arc to tell. Like, it seems very rushed
Yeah,
how it's like, oh, he powered up and now we're going to fight him? Like, like this, he's
happened
only
too
gonna wear this armor
fast.
for one patch?
Yeah, yeah. Feels like a lot of things have felt like that, where they feel rushed, and
Yeah.
things can, settle in and take its time. Um, Let us chew on it. It felt a bit similar with Nazoth as well, how he just kind of, appeared and then was gone. A lot of people suspected or were thinking that maybe the Nazoth story would continue into like an Old Gods
Mm.
expansion, even. And instead, it became like a one patch thing and felt very quick,
Yeah, at least
unfortunately.
with Nazoth, there was build up that we knew there were, at least
Yeah,
four old
true.
gods for a while, and like there
Yep,
were whispers, there were hints with him with the jailer. It's a lot of like retroactive, like adding context. Like there
that's
was
true.
no,
Like, by the way, he was there, but like,
yeah,
never mentioned.
or,
Yeah,
plot
yeah,
twist on everything you thought was, iconic and straightforward.
yeah.
Yeah, maybe the
He was
staff at
behind
Blizzard
everything. Mm-hmm.
always had this like model of the jailer, and they were always thinking like, oh yeah, look, they had this vision in their heads that he's like fully fleshed out, and like this is what he looks like. But we as the players didn't
Mm-hmm.
see this vision for a while, and we're not, nearly as familiar with him and the ins and outs. So I definitely think we needed more of a build up there.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so yeah, that's the armored jailer. And then we actually have some in-game footage to share of the new raid and new zone.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And they look really
tip.
good.
Yeah, I really like the raid when you use the Dark Moonfair Inky Black Potion.
Oh,
It
yeah,
just looks
let me
so good.
switch to that.
Yeah.
Bum, 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 bum. Okay. Uh, Here we go. Oh, no, wait. I'm showing without the inky. Give me just a second.
It's still really cool with the Inky, without.
Yeah, it looks beautiful. But I wanted to show inky. Here we go. There we go. Okay. That was a nice transition because you saw almost the exact same place, but with inky
Yeah.
effect instead. But it looks beautiful, inky or not, and it's yeah, it's a really nice contrast as well from the whole Maw, Torghast, and Sanctum of Domination
Mm.
look, and I really like it. The whole raid,
Yeah.
like
So,
aesthetic.
I mean, I like the aesthetic. It has like a Titan vibe to it, which makes sense if this is, the headquarters of where many things in the cosmos are printed, including first ones. I do like how it's not all stone though. I like how there's a lot of wildlife in there, like pastel
Yep.
greens.
Mm-hmm.
And if you zoom in on a lot of details, there's these like faint celestial sparkles on things,
Yep.
um, which reminds me of Algalon. I like how it's airy. I like how it's different than Uldir, which was
Spacious.
like
Mm-hmm.
Titan but very dark and lots of tunnels. So I like how there are things floating in the sky. I think it's very good for screenshots, and a lot of times the raids like Sanctum of Domination don't look very fun to just watch someone run through. They look very kind of dull and dark.
Yep.
So this is much more exciting. And I also think that when you get to one of the final areas, at the end of both of our slides, it's more obvious with Inky Black Knight. but when you sort of see that cosmic energy going into the watery area below it, that also gives me like Maelstrom parallels. How we
Yeah.
had that swirly bit of energy that we saw in Dragon Soul and was so important through Azeroth's history. So I think that's a neat parallel there. But yeah, I love these
Yeah.
inky black pictures.
Yeah, they look really nice. It's a really cool contrast.
Yeah, especially when you have don't know the exact name, but when you have the spheres and they have the engravings in them, the potion really makes them stand out well.
Yeah, like glowing.
Yeah, it just looks
Mm-hmm.
so good.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, hey, maybe the tier sets will look better if you have Inky Black Knight on.
Probably. Honestly, everything looks better with inky.
Yeah.
Just increases the
Um,
contrast so nicely.
yeah. Um, and then yeah, we have a few more pictures of the actual outdoor zone, which is
Yep.
not as fancy as the raid, but that's fine. It's the outdoor zone. You don't have to do fancy things to enter.
It's still very
And
pretty.
yeah, it's still really neat. It's got like a jungle atmosphere to it. I like how it's bright and soothing. I feel like we've spent so much time in the Maw and Korthia that's
Yep.
very dark
Dark.
and not welcoming.
Mm-hmm.
But here it looks pretty neat. We have a lot of jungle. We have some desert areas. Lots of these, gold sphere, decorations lying around. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think Blizzard tries to push the uh I think they try to push the envelope and get creative in the final zone of an expansion. Like
Yeah.
Timeless Isle did a lot of cool things. Tanan
Mm-hmm.
Jungle had a lot of interesting like throwbacks to the old history. Argus was a whole planet that was like very, fell and cosmic. BFA,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we didn't really have new zones. That was kind of a letdown. But yeah, I think that this zone so far is Zereth Mortis. There, you can tell that the art team is trying to have fun and do
Mm-hmm.
interesting cosmic things that maybe they can't do when like stuff has to be more realistic on Azeroth. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you can tell when someone is having fun creating a fantasy environment, and this does seem more welcoming to AFK on than like Argus or Korthia. This reminds me more of the Timeless Isle. That just seems like kind of
Yeah.
fun to hang out in.
Yeah. I really like the the watery areas, and
Mm.
the green with the flying little islands and stuff reminds me of Nagrand. So it's like an
Yeah.
updated Nagrand with watery areas, and then also the sort of Titan aesthetic on the few buildings that are there. And yeah, I think it's a really nice like uh, composition of all of that.
Yeah, so I mean, this is just from a visual standpoint.
Yeah.
A lot of the content isn't in there yet, so we don't know if it's going to be super fun to spend, every day in there. But right now,
Mm-hmm.
it looks, really interesting. So good job, art team on both zones. They seem pretty evocative with like a
Mm-hmm.
balance of things that are familiar and then enough of a twist, fantastical.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Um,
We do
so
know a
yeah,
few
so
things
some
about this zone, right?
Yeah, so Neri started exploring on the PTR,
Mm-hmm.
and we found a few things that people seem to respond positively to. And one thing is that you can skip the first three chapters of the campaign for alts, and that means that you can unlock Zereth Mortis and the start of the cipher of the first one system with your construct that is the very cute Pocopoc.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and basically, to access the skip, you just have to play through the first three chapters of the campaign on your main character, and then you can access it on alts. So that
Awesome.
seems very nice,
Yes.
straightforward.
Yep.
No
Getting
waiting
it straight
until
away.
9.5.
Yep.
Yeah, great.
Not a patch later, not months later when you've already done it on your important alts. You get it straight
Yeah.
away. That's perfect.
Yeah, so that was one thing that people were happy about. I don't know if Blizzard is maybe they're concerned that stuff got the lawsuit really affected their subs, and that's why they're trying to accelerate things like
Mm-hmm.
skips for alts, or the boost was raised from 50 to 60 earlier
Mm-hmm.
than past expansions. So whatever the case is, I think that players are generally pretty happy about the final result.
Yeah, indeed.
Um, and then the other interesting thing is that I know these aren't for everyone, but for people that like
Definitely for
doing,
me.
yeah, there are puzzles in Zereth Mortis that you can do when you do the first three campaign chapters, and they're similar to some of the Nazjatar puzzles, and you find these proto-lock boxes all around the zone, and there's a daily associated with one of them, and you can get different ciphers for completing them. And yeah, it's just, moving squares and lines around in limited number of moves. And if you like them, but some people love mini games, some people don't. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I love them. I
for the
think they're
people,
great.
yeah, yeah, no, I think that they're fun. It's
Yeah,
nice to have little additions like that. I think it fits the vibe of Zereth Mortis. Like it
it
just,
does. Yeah.
yeah, like the whole like it's a mystery zone that we're trying to solve a puzzle with.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that this is a fun addition, and it's easy to skip over stuff like that. But I'm happy that's in there, and you can already uh look at the Wowhead comments, and people are like trying to brainstorm solutions for them.
For some of the
So
new
yeah,
ones. Yeah.
yeah, people just seem really happy with
Yeah.
them. So
It's nice with
um
variety, so
yeah,
I think it's awesome. Because a lot of the time we have looting quests or killing quests, and it's nice for a change sometimes to have a little bit of a puzzle. But yeah, like you said, of course there are people who don't like puzzles because they feel like it takes longer than like regular quests. But I think it's a plus to have some more variety.
yeah. So I think we should put up a spoiler warning for these next two bits.
Yes, so more PTR with some spoilers, some spoiler dialogues. So let's put up the spoiler tag, and it's up. And yeah, now we can talk about it. And when the spoiler tag is gone, that's when it's safe to unmute us in case
Yep.
you don't want to hear any spoilers. Yep, spoiler. I like the spoiler emote. But yeah, we have a dialogue with Sylvanas here in patch
Yeah, we've got
9.2.
we've
Mm-hmm.
got like a monologue with her to someone unnamed, and then we've got a dialogue with I believe it's Uther and Jaina, and both are controversial in different ways. So
Mm-hmm.
let's listen to the first one about her talking about freedom first.
Okay, let's now hope my sound settings are as they should be. Um, okay, here we go.
Remember the exact.
Oh, here.
I don't remember the exact moment I wrested control. I do remember the rush of freedom, the clarity of purpose. When I loosed my arrow, I sought to become his judge and his executioner. I thought that if I could punish him for his crimes, I would be absolved of mine, forgiven for the atrocities he forced me to commit against my own people. But there would be no justice that day for anyone. That is yet to come.
Yeah, there it is. Um, we got it. I can also put some of the dialogue on the screen itself. Let me just double check that you guys did hear it. Yes, okay.
Okay.
Awesome. Yeah. Otherwise, it would have just been us sitting here awkwardly while we're listening.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, this is sometimes where data mining can be trickier if there's no preview for the context of it,
Yeah.
because we don't know who Sylvanas is talking to, and what part of her previous life she's referring to, or
Yeah.
if even more dialogue is on the way, because you can interpret it two different ways. One angle is that she's talking about breaking free of Arthas and trying to shoot Arthas, and she's worried about the crimes committed when she was not in control of herself as a banshee, being turned against her own people with the fall of Silvermoon, and that she, and then that ties into the dialogue where she's like, I can't forgive him for the atrocities he forced me to commit. So that's one interpretation of it. The other interpretation is well, why is Sylvanas talking about Arthas and is saying nothing about the jailer, who is, way bigger? If this is only the dialogue we're getting, then she should definitely be talking about the jailer instead. And she also
Because it's
shot
more
an
relevant
arrow.
right now. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, why is Sylvanas talking about Arthas and has nothing to say about the jailer? So some of this maybe refers to it as well. And the situations are parallel in that, Sylvanas clearly thought that she was going along uh with the jailer, and then
Mm-hmm.
at some point she realized they had different motives, and was not actually fully in control of herself. She was missing part of her soul and did shoot an arrow at him. So I think that I mean, if you just presented me with this dialogue, it would be hard to say. I do think that this could lean more towards Arthas. Maybe she's talking to Uther about like their shared
Yeah.
trauma at the history of Arthas, but it would be weird if we just had this and she has nothing to say about the jailer in the future.
Yeah.
And
Because
that's
it's
where
the most
yeah.
recent. It's the most recent
Yeah.
event, so why would she not be commenting what is going on now? But at the same time, the words are so powerful, and it makes me
Mm,
feel like she's talking about Arthas because it's like a longer history, like it's a longer ongoing thing. But then again, we
mm,
are in a way told that in fact the jailer was behind everything. Um, so maybe she does feel like it was a long and ongoing thing with the jailer as well. So maybe that would make this relevant to him as well. Yeah, I think it would be I think it would be nice if this is some kind of conversation, like you said, maybe with Uther, to make it about the very harsh and like meaningful history with Arthas,
mm.
and then have maybe a separate one with the jailer. Maybe even as I realized, parallel when talking about the jailer as well. That due to this, something maybe similar. Maybe she felt something similar to do with the jailer as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are so confused as to what's happening with the jailer,
Yeah.
why we fought her and then she had a change of heart, what is going on, how is she going to reconcile um her actions with her past. That I think when people see the line, I thought that if I could punish him for his crimes I would be absolved of mine. it
Yeah.
it's like well, if you felt bad about what you did with Arthas, then like shouldn't you feel mega bad about what you did with the jailer? You're like, don't you have anything to say about that?
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of people are just, so curious what happened to Sylvanas after she collapsed on, the floor of the raid, that they're just hungry for any possible dialogue. And here she is talking about crime she committed, so everyone's like, oh, finally she admitted she did something wrong. Like, people are just so curious to know what happens to Sylvanas. And
And what she
I
thinks of
guess some of
everything
that,
that she's done.
yeah, like, people just really want to know that. So even though, yes, this could just be a quiet dialogue with Uther, um this is the first Sylvanas dialogue we have heard since, June. So people are curious to know what happens next in her current story. Maybe this
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have been as confusing if we had like book previews at this point. Like,
Yeah.
maybe if there was a book preview from her point of view when she first wakes up after Sanctum of Domination, showing her emotions. Like, that could be something where it's like, okay, we know where Sylvanas is in the current day, and things can make more sense that way.
Mm-hmm.
Um but yeah, I mean, it's like, you don't. they don't do anything with Sylvanas since June, and then this like little bit of juicy dialogue, and only this bit shows up
Yeah,
on the
only this.
PTR. And it's like, well, what do you? It's not like there was 300 lines of Sylvanas dialogue. It was just like this. So of course people are going to be like, oh, we finally have new Sylvanas dialogue. What does she think about this? You know, big plot twist that happened to her. Like people
Yeah.
are just really curious about that angle. So I think that's why people, including myself, wanted to be like, oh, we finally got an update on what she thinks
Yeah,
of
about
patch
what she just
9.1.
did. Yeah.
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 And
Because it would make sense for us to first hear about that and then, dig deeper into what else happened in the past.
yeah, I mean, based on what we know from the official preview, we know that she has some sort of uh like Uther is some sort of mentor to her, but we also know that uh, the heroes are interrogating her in Oribos and want to question her. So this dialogue could be read as, oh, she's talking to Uther, or it could be read as they were trying to interrogate her as to when she, you know, when did she get awareness? Why did she fire that arrow in the raid? It could go both ways based on the official information.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think we should listen to the other dialogue because
Yeah.
it's interesting what they kind of do to Jaina in it, I think.
I'll have the text up at the same time here, so
Yeah.
those of you who prefer to read can
Mhm.
read it if my cat allows me to.
Oh, the other cat's here. That's great, Pop.
All right. Here we go. Oh. Okay. Text up and voice on.
If the jailer has breached the sepulchre, then he is but a breath away from enacting his plan.
We cannot allow that to happen.
Tell the others what you told me.
You all have witnessed the jailer's power firsthand. Without the means to resist his domination, we have no chance against him. Anduin may be the key, if we can save him from...
You dare speak of freeing him after all you have done?
Sylvanas held the Mournblade that bound him. Her presence may help free Anduin from the jailer's grasp.
I will never trust her.
Yeah, that was the full thing. And with Jaina's last words there, I have to say that I'm happy with her keeping her stance, because that's the scary thing with really strong redemption arcs for people who do a lot of really bad things. I'm glad that there is at least, someone who is still questioning her and not just like, oh, well, you were controlled. Well, that's too bad. Let's be best friends now. So, yeah, I think that's good that it keeps a little bit of spiciness and a harsh edge on that.
Yeah. I do think there could be a little bit of nuance because, Jaina is always meant to be seen as this very, like, pragmatic, like tactical, leader. Like she's always, like she makes difficult decisions, but she's kept a cool head and has, overseen, cities before, large armies, has her shit together. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think it's a little weird that the very first thing she does is argue with Sylvanas. Again, this could be part of her larger dialogue, but
Mm-hmm.
like I think the last part is good where she's like, "I'll never trust her," but it definitely seems like, oh, we keep hearing that Jaina is like pragmatic and
Because she's meant
balances
to be
emotion.
diplomatic as well. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like, oh, actually, we're
Mm-hmm.
just seeing Jaina just like be super emotional and just first thing isn't like
Yeah.
I think it would make more sense if she was like, I guess we'll have to do this, but like, I can't stand working with you. Like it's,
Mm-hmm.
it's, Sylvanas and Uther
Still
are like, let's free
specified.
Anduin. And like, Jaina is Anduin's, I think maybe this would have worked if it was a random character, but Jaina is basically, Anduin's aunt. Like, they're family members. they're meant to
So
be
she should do
close.
anything
Some
to
of the
want to
books
save him.
have highlighted it. So it's weird
Yeah.
how like Jaina is just like, oh, you want to free Anduin. Ew, it's like, shouldn't you feel like, I don't know, like family bonds with Anduin first? Like it just
Like
yeah.
anything, like let it take anything, but we need to save Anduin, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that type of thing makes sense. But yeah, I am glad that even if it's a bit clumsy that she is um
Maybe it should have
that
been
she's
Tyrande.
upset with Sylvanas. Sorry, go ahead.
Maybe it should have been Tyrande in that dialogue
Yeah. Or yeah, but yeah, I just feel
to
like
give
Jaina,
resistance.
yeah, like Jaina with her like background with Anduin as well as dealing with, Theramore and overseeing things like the Zara lore, like she seems very practical
Mm-hmm.
and has this personal stake with Anduin, so it just seems odd that the first thing out of her mouth is like, "Oh, I don't like this plan because it's you." It's like,
Yeah. I see what you mean. Mm-hmm.
yeah. Um and we have all these things in the books showing that she is better at planning things, more mature, but, people don't read all those books and they just get, Jaina going off and being emotional again, Jaina trying to blow up Orgrimmar because Theramore got bombed. So, uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I do think that some extra, extra back and forth would have been good here. Obviously, this is not the full story of what happens. I assume that there's some interrogation scene where Sylvanas just doesn't wake up and then is like, "Oh, the jailer has done this. Let's save Anduin." Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, we also did play through the chapters on the PTR, and it didn't really cover Sylvanas. It was more intro stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
this is we hope that we would cover the data mining and we'd log on to the PTR and it would be like, oh, like here's the full Sylvanas quest, but that was not the case. So
It's not there yet.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I definitely think that sort of like Pelagos, this would be an interesting. It definitely got a lot of people discussing Sylvanas again, but
Mm-hmm.
I do think that if this was preceded by like a short story, or you could play through this quest line when the PTR went up to have the full context, I do think that it would have benefited more from that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or do a Sour Fang where it's uh, all hidden, uh,
Yeah,
where
like
in
no
BFA, like
hints.
that whole,
Yeah.
yeah, like we still had lots to discuss. We didn't, we weren't, wasn't
Mm-hmm.
like WoW had fell apart because we couldn't, post a few voiceover articles.
No.
Um, so yeah, I do think that this story could be handled differently because we can transcribe stuff, we can put up audio, we can offer different interpretations, but at the end of the day, it's still something um, incomplete for a very nuanced, tricky, already controversial storyline.
Yeah.
Um, and then for our other bit of surprise dialogue,
Spoilers. Yep.
yeah, um, very few lines, and this hints at the end of the Shadowlands story. Some data mined voiceover between the Primus and Bolvar. Right, Paul, what are you doing? He's destroying something. And I think we can listen. There's only a few quotes. I think we can listen and then discuss them.
Yep. Let's do that.
Imbued with the strength of those who defied domination. Behold, the crown of wills. That which sought to bind us will be made anew.
The jailer. He who tormented so many. Who long ago set in motion the plague of undeath on our world, has finally been destroyed.
Yep. There it is.
Yeah.
My cats are looking at each other like they're about to attack.
Oh no. You need to
yeah.
AFK or
No, I should be okay. At most, my table will shake, so it should be okay. But yeah, very few lines, but
yeah, I guess we won. The jailer, he who tormented so many, who long ago set in motion the plague of undeath on our world, has
Has
finally been
finally been
destroyed.
destroyed. So yeah, there it is. That's the
Pretty,
end of it. We are confirmed to be destroying or having the jailer be destroyed at least. Which is I don't know. How do you feel about that?
in it's like when I was talking about the model, I feel like he's not very compelling in his current form. His story felt kind of rushed,
Mm-hmm.
and it's it feels at least with Nazoth we knew about the old
About
god
him.
before his appearance, or
Yeah.
Ashara, like this lore was teased for a while. And with the
Mm-hmm.
jailer, it's like, oh well, you've heard about the lore, but you didn't know the jailer was involved until the very last minute, and that feels kind of cheap. And I also think that with a lot of compelling villains, they're not just presented as totally evil, like they're meant to be believable or sympathetic in some way, like you can understand why they are doing what they're doing. And the jailer is just like this super cosmic force that just wants to like smash everything and is undefeated and
Yep.
is all powerful. And it's just really hard to, I think, relate to that story, like the double punch of totally unredeemable cosmic mystery being, and oh JK, he's been involved in the last 20 years of the story all along. Like I don't have this sense of high stakes or urgency.
Yeah, I think this story would have been fine as its own little arc if it had just stayed as the little arc of Shadowlands. But I feel like the way that it's described, that the jailer has been behind so much for so long, makes it feel like expectations are then higher, that the enemy should be, you know, very, very interesting, very dangerous, very massive in many ways. And it doesn't feel that way when it's a very short story within the expansion and apparently been behind everything ever. And I think the jailer would have been cooler if it just stayed as that, you know, as someone who is a big villain in Shadowlands, and that's it. I think that would have been
Yeah,
a lot better. I
I
think it would
could
have been
see it.
taken well.
I could see it as like, the jailer versus the arbiter, and you make the arbiter less of a pushover, and maybe the jailer highlights some of the, like the Kyrians, they realized that their cycle of death was maybe not, awesome, so maybe the jailer could represent some of the things that, the Shadowlands wasn't getting right, and it could be interesting if it was these battle of opposing forces.
Mm-hmm.
Um and maybe the jailer wants to reorder just the Shadowlands,
Yeah, exactly.
or
Like a
cause
smaller
chaos just with
scale.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that would have been
like
taken better because the story isn't like it isn't terrible in isolation to do with
mm,
just Shadowlands. You know, like you had the sigil that was taken from him, and then he finally got it back, and now he has all this other stuff going on, and he changed form, which looks cool. You know, looking cool is also a big part of a villain, in my opinion.
yeah.
But the whole sort of retrospect build up of him being behind everything, that makes it feel less powerful when you don't really feel it. You know, it's like you're told something but like you don't see it, and then it falls
Yeah,
empty.
like I think in the past we've said that it would be cool if Blizzard could, if they want to tell this intricate story, they should have the quest to support it. And a lot of these events the jailer was meddling with didn't even take place in WoW. They took place in like, Warcraft 2 and 3. So it's
Yeah.
like, wouldn't it be neat if we actually had a quest that, you know, you could actually play through these important pivotal events actually in World of Warcraft, and you could get like hints of a jailer's presence at the side.
Mm-hmm.
Because,
Yeah.
it's not clear in Warcraft 3 at all that the jailer
No.
exists. you
No.
know.
No, exactly. And they could have even built it in a way where he was, you know, inspired by whatever caused back then instead of he was behind it. I
Right.
think that way you could have still drawn parallels with Arthas and Lich King and everything. That maybe he was heavily inspired in one way or another, maybe connected somehow, but not being behind it. I think that's the part that makes it feel
I could
like it falls
also
flat.
I also like the idea that, maybe the Dreadlords were just always like maybe the Dreadlords were always causing chaos, maybe
Mm-hmm.
different realms have been weakened recently by
Mm-hmm.
events, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe the jailer is so inspired that like he swoops in and like, you know, takes advantage of the chaos.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
I think that could be interesting. Like, maybe he wins in the Shadowlands and he's like, "Oh, cool, the Burning Legion's a mess. I'm going to take over Fel," or, you guys just defeated N'Zoth. Let me try to, do something with the Void area. I think that would be more interesting if he tries to like make a move and expand his influence now, like
Mm-hmm.
using the current messy situation to his advantage as opposed to masterminding all of this.
Yeah, exactly. Like more of a um, very not young, but a maybe almost naive attempt to take on
Mhm.
so much suddenly, and that's why we
Yeah.
defeat him as well. I think that
Yeah.
would be nice rather than a huge mastermind. But hey, we've known him for one patch. We just destroy
Right,
him.
it's like a huge mastermind that's never been defeated, but when we first meet him,
We
he's in
defeat him.
chains. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that
Um
too.
and it's just yeah,
Yeah.
it's just all over the place. And
Mm-hmm.
it's besides that, it's not just supervillain taking over the universe. It's like going to also tell you that the universe is like actually, like the Marvel cosmic universe, and you can
Yep.
3D print gods and Zereth Mortis, and we're gonna just totally change how we perceive gods, and there are 7 forces, not 6. Sorry if you like Chronicle. It just keeps so
Yeah.
many things are changing at once that aren't super related to the core story of I like, killing boars in my Elwyn Forest RPG. We've come a very long way from that.
Yep. 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 It's a whole new world, and maybe told more deeply than it needs to be. I think
Yeah.
they stretched very far that didn't need to be stretched, and it would have been fine as its own isolated story.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm still interested in stuff like, oh, Thrall reunited with his mom. What realm did his dad go to?
Mm-hmm.
What does he think about, Garrosh going out, cursing him in the raid? Like, I'm still interested in those
Yeah,
human aspects more, or like, have the elements return to him? Does he still feel guilt? Like, I think that is more interesting than,
more
you
cosmic
know,
things.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if we go back to the other 2 lines in the video,
Mm-hmm.
behold the crown of wills, that which sought to bind us will be made anew, imbued with the strength of those who defy domination. That is the name of one of the campaign chapters. And I don't know if this is intentional or not, but there was a quest chain in Classic WoW where the crown of wills was something that you had to retrieve um for Sylvanas. And when the ogre put the crown on, he was able to resist Sylvanas's mind control. So I don't know if it's the
Mm.
same crown of will with this whole, the story is coming full circle, but it's just funny. If that's an oversight, it's how it was also related to Sylvanas.
Like it just happened to have the same name.
Yeah. Um but yeah, it's
That's
just,
interesting
it's
though.
like yeah. But
Mm-hmm.
either way, it seems like we're making a new crown. So I guess that comes full circle from Sylvanas ripping apart the crown.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And
An item in
I guess
classic. Wow. Hmm.
yeah. I guess it's also, we don't know who is going to wear the crown. Is Bolvar going to wear this crown? Is Sylvanas going to wear the crown? Because, in the cinematic, there was that moment where it looked like she was going to put it on when it was in front of her face, and then she ripped it.
Yep. Oh yeah.
So,
I first thought she
yeah.
was gonna put it on.
So it's like
Then she didn't.
if Sylvanas won't end up the Arbiter, is Sylvanas going to be like uh the bearer of this crown now? Is that going to be her final fate?
Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
think
I
my
don't
cats are
know
extra
about
excited because I just put my tree up.
oh
It's still
no.
pretty empty, but they can
Yeah.
sense that there's something wrong. Something different. So I think they're both on edge a bit. Um, but yeah,
But yeah, so
I
I
do
mean,
wonder if it is just a random name then, or if it has some kind of
yeah,
connection, because, like you said, even that quest has to do with Sylvanas, so it's not
yeah,
completely, out of place.
yeah. I mean, it's just I mean I just feel a little weird that it's gonna be all wrapped up so quickly. Like even if
It does,
if
yeah.
with the jailer being destroyed, it's like, oh, does that
Mm-hmm.
mean that like Sylvanas is wrapped up and the other loose ends are wrapped up?
Mm-hmm.
Um, this dialogue is still pretty incomplete, but it's still telling if the sentence is like the jailer has been destroyed. It's not like he's been destroyed, but at what cost? Like it sounds
Yeah, yeah,
very
it's just
definitive.
like,
Like, yay, we
yep,
won.
yep. Very
So
final. No open,
yeah,
like, no, what's gonna happen next or anything. Just like, yep, destroyed. It's over.
yeah. I mean, of course, Blizzard hasn't confirmed any of this, and maybe this could also be an old line that they are reusing.
Mm-hmm.
But this is what we have, and I don't think it's super outdated because, like I said, the Crown of Wilds was also data mined as the name for a step in the story campaign. So the names there line up is still being consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah. We actually had a little bit of breaking news.
Oh,
We can take the spoiler tag off before I talk about Blizzard briefly.
okay.
Um,
Spoiler
and
tag
it,
is gone,
yeah,
so everyone can feel free to listen to us now. We are safe and
yeah,
are talking about things outside of the game now.
yeah. So the
Breaking
first
news
thing
as of
that,
41 minutes ago.
yeah, a few months ago we reported that Blizzard was starting a WoW community council, and applications were open, and they wanted people, all types of collectors, enthusiasts to apply, and there would be different discussion forums as well as opportunities for conversations with small groups of members, including Blizzard, and people were curious what was happening to this application. And we learned today that the first round of invites have gone out. A handful of applicants got emails welcoming them to the program.
Mm-hmm.
When we saw some discussion about this, we reached out to Blizzard, who confirmed to Wowhead that invitations to the council will continue to go out for several more days. So if you did apply, and you did not get an invite yet, don't panic. You could still be invited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like they're doing things in a few waves. So this was the first round of invites that have gone through, and then they'll probably have some new ones for the next few days. And for people who may not remember, the idea of this community council is that it will be a discussion forum in a way where the people who are in the council can talk directly with the devs, and it's also meant to be an open one, so anyone who is interested can read and see what is going on. So sometimes there have been forums where players are discussing things, but devs may not join in or do much about it, and it just remains as a player discussion. And sometimes there have been groups, discords, and similar for specified areas of the game as well, where devs are in and some players are in as well to give feedback. But a lot of players felt that those were mostly ignored and not really read properly. And so this attempt is supposed to be a bit different, where everything is public, so the devs can't just sit there and ignore because people will see that, as it's meant to be a discussion between the communities. So yeah, I'm really curious to see how this is going to turn out. And it seems like the first step has happened, which is that the first round of invites has now gone out.
Yeah. I'd be curious to see how this is also going to go, as they're saying that they want to keep making sure that the opinions are fresh and that the people in the program are interested. And they're saying after 1 year in the program, they will unflag council members and open the applications again, which I
Yeah,
think
that's
is
really
good because
interesting to swap people
if
out.
someone
Mm-hmm.
totally wants to quit WoW, they shouldn't feel like, oh well, I don't want to play this, but I have to give my feedback in the system. It's like, oh, you're not playing, we're untagging you. Everyone needs to keep applying. Like maybe your interests have changed. And yeah, I think
And
that
just fresh
is a
new
good thing.
opinions as well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I also think that I'd be curious to see what the live chats are between council members and the WoW devs. We haven't really gotten a lot of spontaneous conversations in a
Mm-hmm.
while. We haven't
Mm-hmm.
even gotten the like community Q&As that we used to have more in Legion and BFA with, Ian and then like a member of the WoW team like Lore.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that if they can do like a professional job with the live chats, that would be good for the game. Obviously you don't want the live chat to be something like, why is there like, why are there only like 5 colors for cat pets, not 6? But
Yeah.
I think that it could be, if they screen things properly, it could be used in an interesting way if it's also frequent enough.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully they've learned that, especially since the lawsuit, but also with COVID delays, that communication is really key when your player base is interested. Like I think we've even
Oh
seen
yeah.
from like just how people really like those super long like Final Fantasy live letters, that people
Mm-hmm.
like hearing the devs talk in a structured way about their content off the cuff. So uh, hopefully these live chats will be somewhat frequent.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. I look forward to seeing
So
what
yeah,
will be cooked up there.
yeah. So we can get through the last round of Blizzard stuff quickly because I think the PTR might be coming up and Stevon needs his time to shine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Some
so
quick
as
Blizzard
usual,
news.
there's always Blizzard news going on.
Yep. Never
um,
ending.
yeah. The first story we just wanted to highlight is that um the Game Awards take place December 9th, and the hosts are debating how to navigate the event with Activision Blizzard, because, a lot of AAA publishers are there. And they said, we want to support employees and developers, but don't want to diminish developer opportunities to spotlight their games. We have to think very carefully about how to proceed here. And it was already confirmed that Diablo 4 and Overwatch 2 are not being featured at this year's show. Which it's kind of like a wishy-washy, it's weird, it's like a wishy-washy statement. Like it's not condemning Activision Blizzard, but by also singling Activision Blizzard out, it's sort of turning a like blind eye to similar problems in other large studios. Like I don't remember there being a similar stink when Riot's lawsuit broke a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's just it's interesting because like if you're a WoW player, like you're always hearing about like protests and accountability and lots of things related to Blizzard going on, and like it can almost feel like you're in an echo chamber where everyone is like on board with you. But then it's interesting when you read something like this Game Awards take, which is like very like sort of spineless, like very much like, oh yeah, they're not going to be there. We have to like we don't know what we're doing, and it kind of shows why people keep trying to make a stink about this sort of thing, because the larger media outside of Blizzard games takes a while to form a strong opinion on things.
Mm-hmm. I think there's
Like
like several reasons for that. I think
yeah, yeah.
part of it is probably I think Blizzard and Activision had a lot of things happen in a short period. It wasn't just a
Yeah.
lawsuit, it was also how like more and more stories came out, so they ended up being in media so much that it would look bad. It would look
Mhm.
worse for them to keep Blizzard at the nomination award compared to what Riot may have looked at. I don't remember what came out of or what happened after the Riot lawsuit, but I feel like the Blizzard one has definitely been like stretched out longer. I think part of it is also because people who play Blizzard games are a lot more invested in Blizzard
Mm.
games compared to people who play Riot games are not as invested because of game commitments being different. An MMO has a very different relationship between game and developer compared to like a competitive game where most people don't really look up any devs or look up anything. They just play the game, hop into a game, hop out. Except if you're a professional, because then you care about balancing. But for the most part, I think people play Riot games in a much more casual way. Not necessarily casual in hours. I think people still spend a lot of time in it, and many people as well. I think they have a much larger population. But I think people playing Blizzard games are just simply more invested. So when something bad happens, I think the talk about the bad then lasts longer. So you could say in a way that Blizzard would be more punished than another company for doing the exact same thing. But I think that's just that's just how it's going to
Yeah.
be.
I
And
just think the wording with Blizzard, like, it could have been stronger. Like, it's like, oh
yeah,
yeah, just so you know, they're not going to be at the ceremony. Oh, they already said they weren't going to be there. Like, I know it's meant to be a time of celebration, but it's been a really painful year for a lot of people working at Blizzard. So,
yeah,
you
true.
know, I think that I feel like the statements were kind of this mix of I hope we can placate the victims while also like not burning bridges with a publisher that could, be a part of this event and generate lots of, money for us. And I don't think that I don't think the statement is super satisfactory with Blizzard. I think that it could have been more satisfying if we're like, they're not going to be at the event and we're celebrating games, but to have people reach their potential, they need to feel like, safe and inclusive, being able to make these great games. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, we condemn what the corporation has done, even though we want to celebrate the employees creating them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, but yeah, I just think the statement could have been stronger because right now, like, no one is sort of happy with this non-statement. That's kind of
Yeah,
like in the middle and not
yeah.
really
It's like
pleasing anyone.
wriggling yourself out of being too complained at. So it's like
Yeah.
just doing what you think is best for the least fire, kind of. Um,
Yeah.
Instead of actually, trying to get a clear message out. And
Yeah, it actually led people to do like a boycott the Game Awards hashtag just because people were like,
yeah,
oh, like,
people weren't happy with that.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And
yeah.
also, like, they're talking about Diablo 4 and Overwatch 2, which are two games
Yeah.
that have been delayed. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's like
They're
they're
like, oh, yeah,
saving themselves in
we'll
a
be
way
there.
because there just isn't
Yeah.
anything really much to talk about because there isn't much going on.
Yeah, it's
So
not
yeah,
like they disinvited Diablo 4 from being there. Like, it already wasn't there.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, oh, wow. Like, good job, you. Like, you actually didn't take a stand. This is just how it was.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Um, But yeah, so that was one story, and then another story of note is that various state treasurers have expressed lack of faith in Activision Blizzard CEO. Um, and the state treasurers of California, Delaware, Illinois, Massachusetts, Nevada, and Oregon, they've requested a meeting with Activision by December 20th in order to discuss how the company has not handled things well since the lawsuit and the financial risks this has caused. Um, and
Mm-hmm.
that they were considering supporting the SOC, which was that first group that wanted the CEO to resign.
Yep.
And it's still a minor shareholder, but it makes for a really good title, and it keeps putting the pressure
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Absolutely.
on things.
I mean, it's these kind of things that keep pressuring to make people like these game awards people then have to announce that we're not gonna invite Activision because other companies will try to distance themselves because of all this bad PR. So like Sony stepped in, we had Nintendo stepping in, we've had so many
Yeah.
companies stepping in to talk against Bobby because of all these reoccurring things. So it doesn't matter if it's a small shareholder because it all adds up. And that's the same with us also as people. The more we share of these news and smaller groups that are working against Activision, the more we share those things, the more of an effect it'll have.
Yeah. So, all these little things add up, and it's just a
Mm-hmm.
steady stream of different sources. So, even if a lot of these groups are like 1%, if enough groups speak up, that will lead to more momentum or eventually
Yeah.
something sizable. And it's just
Yeah.
really not good PR at all
No.
for Blizzard.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Going along with our final thing, so the CEO is also on the board of directors for Coca-Cola,
Yep.
and the National Legal and Policy Center is demanding he step down there as well.
Yeah. To be
So,
removed from the
and they're saying
Coca-Cola
that,
board.
yeah, they're saying that Coke has done some hypocritical things in the past, and
Mm-hmm.
the organization is viewing this as an opportunity to actually do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
You need to confront him directly, and they're saying your hypocrisy has not gone unnoticed. Virtue signaling and pandering to the loudest political activist is not a replacement for real leadership.
Yep.
And yeah, again, this is like a tiny amount of shares. They have this is like way less than 1%, but it still makes waves, and I think it's telling that a lot of these places, even though they were small previously, never spoke out against anything. And now the
Mm-hmm.
situation is making these groups speak out.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Which is good.
so yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
that's all definitely good. Um, and of course there are more breaking news stories developing. There's currently protests going on about some temp QA workers that were fired just in time
Oh,
for quarter
at Raven.
four, and
Yeah.
various walkouts that are taking place. Call of Duty was doing walkouts after surprise layoffs at Activision Blizzard's Raven Software. And I think other QA departments are now also showing support for that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, still is a wild time for Blizzard. I sort of dread if they're gonna try to put some unpopular corporate thing, live on December 24th and hope no one notices it. you know, like they
Yeah.
did with Thanksgiving. How there was that deluge of completely wild, demoralizing news right before the
Yep.
holidays.
Yep.
So,
I remember.
um, I mean, I guess the silver lining is that it's good to have this information come to the public, so it's not hidden any longer. But yeah, it's just a lot to process.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Indeed.
so I think that's about it.
Yeah, I think that
Um,
just about covers all the most important things that we wanted to talk about and mention to you guys. A little bit of out in the world business news to do with
mm,
Blizzard and Activision, and also covering the most interesting game news as well, like the Mage Tower. Again, as a reminder, is now out for US and will be out for EU tomorrow, and yeah, a bunch of PTR news, which is apparently still rolling in. So if you keep an eye on Wowhead right now, there's articles coming out with new updates on things.
yeah, like they just announced a reworked Resto Shaman
Yep.
tier set bonus, as well as more raid testing this
Yep.
week. So
Mm-hmm.
definitely keep an eye out. We will be covering any model updates, new quests, all those fun things.
Yep.
A little surprised they're putting it live today with Legion Timewalking. You'd think they wanted people to focus on doing content on live servers, but I guess it is what it is. We'll see if there's anything special on this PTR very soon, I imagine.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And we'll talk about that on the next show. Thank you
Yeah.
guys so much for watching today, and hope you guys have a great rest of your night, evenings, afternoons, and we'll be back again next week with the Wowhead Weekly show covering whatever happens between now and then. And in between that, you guys may catch Stevan doing some data mining.
Yeah. So, yeah, thanks everyone for your support with Wowhead's Legion Time Walking and Mage Tower guides.
Mm-hmm.
And I will see you either next week or audio on the Stevan data mining stream.
Yeah,
Yeah.
indeed.
All
Have
right.
fun,
See
everyone,
ya.
and we'll see you all next
Bye.
week. Bye bye.